Welcome back, Legends, to another episode of the tutorial series for Grand Fleet Admiral. This time we're going to go over turn order, command actions, and the shooting mechanics. First off, we're going to go over the initiative token system. These tokens determine the activation order during a game. Each battle group is assigned a token, whether it's red or blue or whatever color you decide to color each token, and you place those tokens into a shared bag. And the players alternate drawing tokens to activate those battle groups. But just remember, when you are in the Vanguard phase, only the Vanguard tokens go into the bag. When you finally arrive into the combat phase, everybody else's battle groups, all those tokens go into the bag. So Vanguard section first, those tokens, they just go into the bag once, and then once the combat section comes again, those tokens, everybody, all the tokens are in the bag. So let's move on. Depending on the size of the game, there's also several neutral battle space initiative tokens in that said bag. When you draw one of these tokens, you can choose to activate any battle group that hasn't been activated this turn. If you draw a token for a battle group that's already been activated, you can go ahead and draw again. And in a certain size, you can see this chart. The 1,000-point fleets usually are starter fleets, and you have 2 battle space initiative tokens added into that single bag. So when the bag is completely empty, that's when the players will resolve the CQB battles, and you alternate who draws from the bag first on each subsequent round. So if player 1 drew on turn 1 first, player 2 will draw on turn 2 first. And like I said before, if you draw a token for a battle group that's already been activated, you can draw it again. And some skilled admirals may have their own faction-specific tokens that they can add to the bag at the start of the game, as you can see from Sebastian Proudmoore, a pirate captain. He has the trait Vengeful Father, which allows him to add 4 black bits to the bag when his battle group is deployed. So you can see the rest of how that works. And when a battle group is destroyed, remember to remove the corresponding counter from the bag when it withdraws from the table as well. There's the one bag system, but there's also the way that I personally like to play is the 2 bag system, which each player has their own bag containing their battle group tokens. And players alternate drawing a token from their own bag to activate one of their battle groups. So player 1 draws a token, player 2 draws a token. When player 1 draws a token, their battle groups will be activated and not player 2's battle groups. So it allows a even distribution of activations during the turn. So here are some pros and cons of each. I'll let you read through these. Like I said, I personally prefer the 2 bag system, but I will tell everybody to play both ways and make sure you have your own system that you like to play, because the official 1 bag system, if you get into more competitive play, that's going to more likely be what the tournaments comprise of, is the 1 bag system. There's some talk on the Discord of how we're going to do things in the future, but nothing is completely set in stone yet. I'm sure it's gonna need multiple testing periods with many players, such as yourself, giving us feedback to be able to determine how the system in the future should play. But for now, there is an option, and you can play the alternative system, or you can stick to the official 1 bag system, which I have not personally played yet, but I will get there. I only played 1 game so far, and it was with the 2 bag system, but I was thinking I was playing the game correctly but I wasn't. Which wound up turning into its own system, which it was actually a lot of fun. So it was a good time. It was a good time, and I cannot wait till the next one. So now we have the phases of the game turn. You have 2 phases. You have the scouting phase, which your vanguard battle groups join the field, and they focus on the early positioning and securing those objectives. And then once the combat phase arrives, usually in the second turn, unless there's some special things that people create for narrative games or whatnot, you're going to enter the combat phase, and that's when your battle groups move, attack, and perform the special command actions. And to the right, this is a breakdown of the turn order step by step. But if you prefer a more flowchart experience for your turn order, here you go. I made this one a couple days ago, and hopefully it kind of clarifies that little point-to-point list in a more logical flow of events. So you're going to let me break it down, because this is the one token, or the one bag system, excuse me. The one bag system, you're gonna, let's say player 1 starts, so player 1 picks a token, but it's battle group 2 for player 2. So you're gonna go down to player 2. Player 2 is gonna activate that battle group 2, and then you're gonna issue special commands if they want to, and if they do, you're gonna have to do a skill check. If you pass or fail, it doesn't really matter. After that skill check, you're gonna launch the fighters. And if you don't have fighters, you're going to use electronic warfare. But if you don't have electronic warfare either, you're going to go move. You're going to do your movement, and then you're going to shoot and designate all your shooting phase, which we'll go over in a little bit here. Once you shoot, you look at the bag, is everybody's battle group activated? If the bag is not empty, you're going to repeat the process over again. And then player 2 is going to draw a token out of the group. And you go so on and so forth until the bag is empty. And once the bag is empty, you're going to move into the ground close quarter combat. After you're done with all the CQB, you're going to have that turn end. So turn 1 will be completely over, and you're going to apply any end of turn effects, or erase any end of turn effects, and score your objectives, and so on and so forth. So hopefully that makes the flow a little bit more logical, and you can screenshot this and print it out, do whatever you want. So what are those special commands? Those command actions are powerful abilities that can change the flow of battle. The battle groups can gain your movement advantage, you can enhance your combat effectiveness, and you can perform unique tactical maneuvers. As you can see by some of these examples here, take down those strike craft, go dark, and scramble. Available actions scale up with the game size as well. So up to 1,000 points, you have 3 special commands that you can bring with your fleet, and every 500 points thereon is 4. For like 1001 to 1500, you have 4 special commands, and 1500 to 2000 is 5, or 1501 to 2000 is 5 extra special commands, or 5 special commands, excuse me. So let's use that as a baseline and go from there. So once you use that command action requires a skill check for you to succeed. You want to roll a d10. You compare the roll to the number of ships in the battle group. If the roll is equal to or greater than the ships in the battle group, that action succeeds. And your commanders will modify that skill check value. So if you bring a generic commander, as you can see on the table, Confident 2 will give you no skill bonus at all. So if you have 6 ships, it's a 6 or above to pass the skill check. But if you are like Flight Captain Argent Vic Rama, which you can get this starter fleet, which he is the commander of, over at KobraFleetworks.com. But if you have him and he has 6 ships in his battle group, he's going to have to roll a 3 because his skill is +3. So now it makes it a lot easier doing that. Having a good commander to be able to push out all those special abilities and just mop the floor with any other fleet, depending on how well you can use them. So moving on to shooting, which is probably the funnest part of the game. There is a certain procedure that you need to go through. So when you are in your shooting phase for your battle group, you want to declare the target of what you're firing at. What battle group are you going to decide to engage? And when you have decided that, you're going to pick your weapon and make sure that weapon is using the correct firing arc to hit your target. And then after you pick your weapon, you measure the range with a tape measure and make sure that it actually is within range. And after that, you calculate the shooting modifiers. And the chart I always tell you to memorize on the right here, this is this chart that will determine what your accuracy rating will be. If you're shooting at the enemy battle group with ordnance, you're going to make sure that every ordnance shot will have a ADS, another dice. So the defender will take, you shoot 5 torpedoes, the defender will take 5 dice and roll to save depending on their ADS rating for that battle group. So we went over that a little bit before, but let's say your ADS rating is 2, you have to get 8 or above. So that is the best way I think I can explain that. After the ordnance saves is completed, you're going to allocate any damage that the defender declares what ship will be damaged first, unless you have like assassin systems. I don't know if there's any other trait, but certain trait will allow the attacker to be able to determine what ship will allocate the damage. So if you played Warhammer before, it's kind of along the similar lines. Let's see. Shields, they lose 1 shield per hit. Ships with no shields lose 1 hull point per hit. Ships at half hull point or less are classified as critically damaged. And those traits, once you're critically damaged, you cannot use more than 2 thrust points. And you cannot regain shields. So you are on the brink of death when you lose your shields. It is not good, especially when you become critically damaged. Whew. So once a ship is declared as the targeted ship, it can only be changed once all hits from the firing weapon system are allocated or the target is destroyed. So important note there to keep in your mind. There are different factors that affect shooting, as we've gone over before. The speed is the most important one that you're going to encounter. And like I say, memorize that chart. Terrain, the obstacles can provide cover, and accuracy if you're shooting through a light asteroid field, it will take -1. If you need to hit on 5 or above, it'll be a 6 or above instead. Your weapon trait, well, you always have to account for that. So make sure that you know what weapons, what traits they're accompanying that weapon. And also the weapon ranges, because each weapon has a minimum and maximum range. And some weapons, like torpedoes, they excel at long ranges, but they have a minimum range, which is like 8 inches on the Jezerac fleet, or the Lance torpedoes. They're 8 to 32 inches. So, or less, 24 maybe? I don't know. Let me see. It might be in the back. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, 8 to 32 inches. And then you have your traits, dumbfire and shield skipping 5. And it says roll to hit 2, but the thing with dumbfire, it doubles the shooting effect. So if you have your fleet or if you have your torpedo launching battle group and you're going, let's say, speed 5 or thrust 5, that's double. If you look on your table here, that's double -3. So you have 2 plus 6, which is 8. So you have to hit on 8s instead. Yeah. See what I mean here? You gotta make sure you're using the speed and movement effectively to be able to take out whatever you're trying to take out efficiently, because you don't want to waste turns. So if you do become critically damaged, what happens? What kind of morale checks do you have to take? Well, the battle group has to lose 50% of its starting ships, and that's rounded up. Morale tests are triggered by a ship in the battle group being destroyed, a special action or faction ability that requires a test. So how do you test that morale? You roll 1 dice per surviving ship. Success on a 6+ modified by the commander's morale bonus. So if he has a +3, it's going to be better. If the failures exceed the success, the battle group is broken. So if you have to roll 5 dice, 3 succeed, 2 fail, you're good. Otherwise, the battle group continues normally. And always round up unless specified otherwise. And once again, what happens when that battle group breaks? So as you follow the flow chart, you can see that ships within 3 inches, they surrender to the enemy if their battle group is broken. So you have to remove all of those ships that are within 3 inches from the enemy from the board. If they're not, they route to the friendly edge of the table, and you continue the turn until the next turn, and then you can attempt to restore or order again. One thing that's important to note is any launched strike craft that is accompanying the battle group that has broken, they also must turn around and retreat as well. And CQB companies are not affected by routing or morale failures if they are landed on an objective. If they are still in a dropship, they have to turn around and route towards the friendly table edge. So on the next activation, if you failed the battle group morale test, you can attempt to restore order again, and you go through the process, so on and so forth, until you're either to the end of the table and you're completely routed, or you succeed and turn around and continue the fight with what's left of your battle group, that is. So now that we've reached the end, we can combine all of these actions, the movement, and the shooting. So bringing it all together, we'll be able to plan ahead, command smartly, focus fire on high value targets, and adapt to the initiative token draws if you're playing a 1-bag system. If you're playing a 2-bag system, you don't have to adapt as much. You can play a easier chess game than with a 1-bag system, because it's so sporadic and you can never tell what's going to happen next. So next we will go over boarding actions, ground combat, strike craft, and carriers in episode 5. So stay tuned, and thanks for hanging around. I will catch you in the next one.